Hello.
Hello,
Welcome to 2020 Vision,
2020 Vision. I am Alex.
and I'm Julian. We're your two hosts for this podcast on the 2020 election.
This is episode 2, in which we discuss the two candidates, Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, as well as generational change in politics. But to kick off things, just some news.
We just want to talk about the candidates who have jumped in the race since the last episode over the last week. And we'll start with the mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, who dropped in on Friday, who's going for a working families sort of campaign.
We also have the governor of Montana, Steve Bullock, who also jumped in, except he jumped in on Wednesday.
So we're going to talk about the two candidates that Alex highlighted, Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg,
as well as generational change.
So our question is, do we really need generational change? So we'll talk about those two candidates and we can answer that question. So we'll start off with Joe Biden, who, as you know, was the vice president for Barack Obama from 2008 to 2016, and he's our older candidate.
One of our most old candidates, excluding Mike Gravel, although I don't know if you can call Mike Gravel a candidate. He boasts almost, I think, over 50 years of political experience, and he has called himself one of the most qualified candidates, if not the most qualified candidate for the job.
Before being Obama's vice president, he was a senator from Delaware, and he was also famous for being the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee during Anita Hill and the Justice Clarence Thomas hearings. And he was also chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Recently, concerning the Anita Hill trials, he has run into a bit of controversy, and also with the Me Too movement. But he has tried to redeem himself with a new video, and I hear he called Anita Hill right after he announced his campaign.
She didn't really like that call, but we'll read you a couple of his quotes.
A couple of months back in December, when he was pondering, first of all, it's worthwhile to mention that Joe Biden has been leading the polls for, I think, since 2018, and he's kept up there. When he was pondering his election, and it became very likely that it was going to run, he announced, and I'll read it here, I'll be straight with you as I can. I think I'm the most qualified person in the country to be president.
He said this back in December before his campaign, and he also said, the issues that we face as a country today are the issues that have been in my wheelhouse, that I've worked on my whole life. He later added,
no one should run for the job unless they believe they would be... No one should run for the job unless they believe they would be qualified doing the job. I've been doing this my whole adult life, and the issues that are the most consequential relating to the plight of the middle class in our foreign policy are things that even my critics would acknowledge. I may not be right, but I know a great deal about it.
So that really gives you a sense of how much he thinks he's experienced. And in his video, he also spoke a lot about the acts at Charlottesville and says this is one of the worst things that has happened in U.S. history.
Yeah.
So that's enough about him, and we're going to move on to the younger candidate we're highlighting, Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg.
If you want to know how to pronounce it, read Nettie's article. It's in the title, actually. Buttigieg. So he is a up-and-coming hopeful and the current mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He does not have too much political experience.
But he has said time and again, time and again,
Positive time.
He has said several times that he has more political experience than President Donald Trump, which is quite accurate. I think, yeah.
He also boasts that he has more executive experience than the vice president. And he claims that with his generational change, this is a central part of his campaign. That's going to be effective in his presidency. Aside from that, I don't think Buttigieg has anything about him that that's like a signature issue, like Bernie Sanders might have Medicare for all or something like that. We'll cover that in the next episode, by the way. So he's focused on this big idea of when I come in as a youngster, I'm going to change things up.
So one of his quotes, it's a bit long, but we will read it. It's audacious, almost obscene, for someone my age, 37 years old.
37.
But really, any human being to think they belong in that office. Yet everybody who's had that office has been a mortal human being who's brought their experience to the table. I have more experience in government than the president. I have more executive experience than the vice president. I have more military experience than anyone who's arrived at that desk since George Herbert Walker Bush. So it might sound a little cheeky as the young guy in the race, but this is largely about my experience.
Yeah. Emphasis on that quote. So that brings us to our next point, which, as Julian said before, is generational change necessary? And is Buttigieg as qualified as Biden? Should Biden become president? So, what are your thoughts, Julian?
Well, so do we really need generational change? So, considering how many candidates are running this election, I think that it is important to have generational change. I don't think it should be causing issues. Not that Biden and Buttigieg have really caused issues, as Biden hasn't really been in the race for that long. But I think Biden is leading right now, and we'll see what Buttigieg is doing. He hasn't moved really much in the polls.
Recently, it is notable to say that for these last couple of months, he hasn't moved. Before that, Buttigieg was kind of he was just another candidate, but then he took this amazing leap from not even being mentioned on polls to being third in a recent post-ABC poll, which is incredible. He's a dark horse candidate.
Yeah, I remember, I think last year, I remember just looking through the candidates, and I saw this guy, Pete Buttigieg.
I didn't know how to pronounce it either.
Yeah, so I think it's really fascinating how well he's doing. We'll see what he has in store. I bet that he does have a lot in store.
He's certainly. Some giant bird. He's certainly new. A new kind of candidate. Oh gosh.
A little bit of technical difficulties.
Darn computers.
We'll come back to you in a minute or so. We got a little time limit issue here. So cue the Jeopardy music.